If you
If
want to
you want to
defend your
defend your
community from
community
ICE,
from
one of the
ICE,
best
one of the
things you can
best
do right
things you can
now
do
is
right
get a
now
whistle.
is get
A
a
whistle is
whistle.
a simple, fast tool that can alert your community when ICE is in the area.
You've been hearing a lot of that lately. People encouraging others to use whistles to tell the neighborhood, hey, ICE is in the area. Even my own community here in Long Beach, California, has gotten on board. But recently, I saw an immigrant advocacy group that had a different view. The group is called Solo El Pueblo. I am probably not saying that correctly. They're out of Maryland. They're an immigrant rights advocacy group. And they put a carousel on Instagram recently. And the title of it was Why We Don't Use Whistles in Rapid Response. The first thing they did was call people out and say, hey, this is not about you. You're not the hero of this story. This is about harm reduction, and the people being harmed are the immigrants. And their framework is a lot of these people come from countries where whistles were devices used by very, very oppressive, brutal police, and all that whistling, toot, 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 actually sends them into PTSD and gives them trauma and is just a problem. And this group claims that they are taking this information from actual immigrant communities. They have actually asked the people what would be most helpful, what is harmful when we are trying to help you. And I believe they say that the main goal is documenting what is actually going on. That includes getting the names and addresses and phone numbers of family members of the people being detained. And when you're whistling, I can't hear what the person I'm trying to help who's in handcuffs is saying. The other main thing is de-escalation. When you're whistling and cussing out the ICE agent, these people are already, not trained and, probably got recruited from white nationalist groups and so forth and so on. So you are increasing the likelihood that they're going to pop off and hurt either a bystander or hurt the person that they're trying to detain. So that whistling is aggravating them, and that aggravation is increasing the likelihood of harm. So that's another one of the things that they say. And none of this is unreasonable. Then they show this wheel of privilege, power, and control, and they look the reader right in the face and they say, especially for white allies, whistles can indicate a subconscious need for control. But rapid response is not about control. Don't center yourself, center harm reduction on the immigrants that are being targeted by ICE. And I thought that was really powerful, because I myself feel rage when I see the videos and see how ICE is acting. And I myself may feel like if I was out there on the street, I'd want to give a little back, get at them in some kind of way. And the whistle could be subconsciously, even though I'm saying I'm warning people, it could be a way to, irritate them on purpose, right? So I really started thinking about this because I saw this other carousel by public radio station KCRW. Everything I ever learned that's good in this world as an adult, I learned from listener and viewer supported media. So this particular carousel on the KCRW Instagram was promoting an episode of Question Everything. And this episode was about a Washington Post report. It was interviewing the reporter about how ICE is purposely trying to capture dramatic photographs and dramatic video to go viral on social media about what they're doing. And that made me think, I wonder if ICE really is upset when people use whistles, because maybe they want people to whistle and cuss at them and spit on them and do all these type of very dramatic things, anti-ICE things, so that it feeds into their narrative of radical leftists are attacking ICE. And then they can show these images and these videos on their social media that they're trying to get to go viral. and it promotes this narrative of, radical communists, leftists, get paid protesters, and all that type of thing. So I'm sitting here saying, well, this immigrant advocacy group is saying, don't use whistles. It's not actually good for the people you say you're trying to help. And then I'm listening to this podcast saying, ICE is trying to go viral with dramatic videos and dramatic images. And that makes me think maybe they really want people to use whistles and, blow the whistles in their face for their narrative that they're trying to have. But there's this other part of me that says, well, everything that the immigrant advocacy group is saying does make sense when I think about the way that ICE used to conduct detainment and arrests. And to point out how they used to do it, I want to show you a video of reporter Caitlin Dickerson on the Ezra Klein show.
Constantly gone after these people with serious criminal records. But central to their approach was to make arrests happen in a way that was meant to be as safe as possible and as seamless as possible. Not that this is going to sound great to people, but to describe it for you, what ICE agents did historically is that they would identify someone they wanted to arrest, do lots of work at a desk on a computer before they ever pursued this person to confirm their identity, to confirm they had no claim to legal status in the United States. Once that work was done, they would often go to the person's house at 5 or 6 in the morning, knock on the door, and try to take them into custody, often while other relatives are still sleeping and before they leave for work for the day. So, I point out that this isn't going to sound great because, of course, what I'm talking about is a situation where you'd have kids wake up in the morning and find out that their mom or dad was gone.
So did you hear her? ICE used to go for particular individuals, and when they came to a neighborhood, they were coming for one person that they had done some research on and knew where that person lived, and so forth and so on. The breadth of people ICE is targeting these days is way wider than it used to be. They are just snatching up everybody in order to make these Stephen Miller, Satan in a suit quotas that have been put on them. And how does this manifest? It manifests in people getting picked up who have no business being picked up because they are totally 100% U.S. citizens. So let me show you a clip of Native Americans getting picked up and detained by ICE. So this guy is the chief of one of the tribal nations. So
who were picked up by ICE in a community called Little Earth right here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And one of them has been released, but they couldn't locate the other 3. So the council members here, they're all elected officials of the Oglala Sioux tribe. And they gained access to the facility and they couldn't find their 3 tribal members. They claim that they're not classifying them by their nationality, which tribal members are also citizens of the United States since 1924. There's nobody more American than American Indians, but they were unable to find them here today. And so they're going to continue on. They got some contact information. They love the fact that you're here, that everybody's here, and they're going to be giving out tribal IDs to their tribal members who are in Minneapolis, St. Paul at the American Indian Center down on Franklin Avenue.
So the next video I want to show you is of an immigrant, but it's of a legal immigrant. And this particular legal immigrant actually worked as a correction officer. And when he was rolled up on, he had his correction officer outfit, uniform, in his car. And you can hear him trying to tell them, how could I be in this country illegally and working for the state of Maine as a correction officer? There's my uniform right there. And they took him away, left his car open and running in the middle of the street. After I show you this video, I will show you the sheriff who had some things to say, felt some kind of way about this pickup because it impugned him doing his job. Because you'll hear the sheriff say, hey, we vetted this guy. He totally clean. Why did he get picked up? So, yeah, check this out.
Get out of the car. I'm a correctional officer at work in Cumberland County. What's wrong? I'm just coming from work. What's wrong? I don't understand this. I don't have any my license. Oh my God. I'm coming from work. My uniform is right there. No, I need to explain to you, man. Why the commission's over there? My uniform is right there. What's wrong? I work. If I was that way, I had an issue. I wouldn't be working with the government.
This is an individual that had permission to be working in the state of Maine. We vetted him. He took the extra step of risking his job to fly to Texas to take care of hearings. And for some reason, he was picked up last night. Folks, that's Bush League policing. Again, in my world, you wait for a wrecker. You wait for somebody to come pick it up that the individual wants. Or you get permission to drive the vehicle into a public parking spot and you lock it up and you give the person their car keys. You don't leave their personal belongings unsecure along the streets of the city of Portland. It's not fair to the guy that owns the car. It's surely not fair to the Portland police. And it's what my understanding is going on. I'll end with this. We're being told one story, which is totally different than what's occurring or what occurred last night. Every indication we found is that this was a squeaky clean individual that really hadn't done anything at all.
So the last bit of information I want to show you is an article from Reveal Center for Investigative Journalism. And this is an article they did with 404 Media, where they're talking about an app that ICE uses on on the officers' phones to scan faces, and that scan is sent to a third-party database. And how much you want to bet that we will come to find out that the information that Elon Musk Doge stole from the IRS and stole from Social Security wound up in that database? How much you want to bet? Anyway, ICE officers are trained that if this app says, oh, this person's face, they are an illegal alien, it doesn't matter if the person is showing you a passport. It doesn't matter if the person is showing you a birth certificate. You can, ICE officers are trained to disregard the documentation in front of them and just listen to what the app has to say about the scanned face. I could go into a whole other video, and I encourage you to look this up, about how inaccurate facial recognition is when it comes to high melanin people. So, yeah. So what does this have to do with whistles? When ICE was doing things the old way, going after individual people that they had sat at a computer and made sure they knew that the person lived at that address or worked at that employer, whatever, I could see whistles not being helpful. If an ICE agent has a warrant signed by a judge, it doesn't matter if you don't open the door. They can bang down the door and come get you. And whistling is not going to do much help if they only come to get one person. It's not necessary to alert the whole neighborhood that they're here because they only came to get one person. So I can understand that immigrant rights advocacy groups saying, hey, whistles are not helping. But I'm thinking of people who are not undocumented immigrants, but who live in an area where there are a lot of undocumented immigrants. If I'm Joe Schmo and I am trying to get to work, or I am trying to come home from work, and I hear the ICE whistle alert as I'm rounding the corner to go to my block, maybe I'm going to make a U-turn. Because even though I myself am a United States citizen, that's really not going to keep me from being picked up. And even though I myself have my military ID or my passport in my car, just in case, it doesn't matter. Because if they scan my face and the machine says, oh, that's so-and-so, they have a deportation order, I'm still going to be detained. And I could be detained for hours, or I could be detained for days. At the time that on that video I showed you with the Native Americans, they had been in there for over a week. So if you're somebody who doesn't have anybody to take care of your children, if you get detained for a couple of hours, or if you're somebody who is going to lose their job if they don't show up for a couple of weeks, or even if they're just 4 hours late for a shift, whatever, you may want a whistle to let you know, oh, around that corner, there's an ICE action, and maybe I need to turn around. I am not saying that it's not trauma inducing for immigrants. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I can see its use considering the breadth of people who are being actually picked up by ICE. At the same time, I can also see ICE using people whistling in their face for their own, narrative of radical leftists. So I'm curious what you guys think. Put in the comments if you think whistles are just white-centered nonsense that really is not helpful and is just performative, or if you think they could actually be helpful, or if it's a little bit of both. I look forward to hearing from you in the comments.